I want to ask you another question based on a hot topic in the MMA world right now, and that's steroid use. Of course, you know about Chael Sonnen's steroid test and how it's made public now. I wanted to ask you, in your own experience, is it something that you have seen? You yourself have been involved in the sport for over a decade. What have you seen from your own personal experience?
Well, I'll be honest. I'll be honest. I think I'm a little naive. I never looked at myself as a naive guy, but I think I was a little bit more naive about it than I originally suspected, because I really didn't see it being an issue. But it makes sense. I mean, why these guys do it, why it happens. I know that the problem is that we want to really demonize these guys and stuff, and that's a little problem I think we have with the fan base, with a lot of stuff, is that they love to see the guy go up, but they also like seeing him fall down hard. There's a lot of demand on these athletes, and is there going to be a strong temptation for these guys to use steroids and everything? Absolutely. I mean, look at our Olympic teams and all this other stuff. I mean, listen, don't be naive. Our Olympic team guys, a lot of those guys are doing steroids. They're just not getting caught. So it's one of those situations where in a perfect world, yeah, no one would be doing them. But it's not a perfect world. They're available. So it's kind of one of those situations where I don't see a really practical solution to this thing unless we're going to be, absolute, testing Nazis on it, meaning, we're going to have random drug tests all the time for our athletes and all that stuff like that. Well, that really invades the privacy of people, you know what I mean? So are we going to do that for these guys to do that? Is that going to be part of these new contracts that come up? Maybe. And if it is, then again, I just don't see I have not figured out a really practical way to solution for this.
The athletic commissions hand out their own suspensions and their own fines, but do you think fighting organizations should add something on top of that to discourage steroid use?
No. I think that there just needs to be a more universal. I think that the organizations have a little bit too much power and influence over the athletes already because they can, whether these guys can fight or not fight or the whole 9 yards like that. I think that's no, I don't think they need to have it. I think the boxing commission. So I think what needs to happen, there needs to be, a more universal, system with the boxing commissions. There's been talk about having a federal boxing commission, which most of the state boxing commissions don't want. But there may be some governing body that needs to be overseeing this that hands out, a unified. We have a unified front on what is going to be acceptable and not acceptable. What are the penalties for it? And I think that needs to be more universal. I think that's the first step to a cure. I said, like I said, I'm at a little bit of a loss on how to do it. I mean, how do we teach these guys that they can do this without the drugs and stuff like that when it's so tempting? So, and of course we want that. I mean, the fans want to have the bigger, stronger, badder guys. So they want it. They say they don't, but they kind of do. So it's like I said, it's such a loaded question. There's really no great answer right now for that I've seen anybody really come up with.
There's been lots of criticism about organizations that are not the UFC, not singling out HDNet by any means, but in your opinion, what do you think other organizations are doing wrong, if they're doing anything wrong, that makes people criticize them when compared to the UFC?
Well, I'm not really sure what you mean by that exactly. I mean,
in terms of production, in terms of execution of events, in terms of staffing their rosters with quality talent.
Well, I mean, listen, you got an 800-pound gorilla where anybody gets an opportunity to go to the UFC, they're going to drop the organization they're with and go to it. I mean, I think these promoters do, the organization, they do the best they can on this stuff. Most of them that stick around, it's a balance between being a cutthroat businessman and also, caring enough about the athletes to do it. There's a fine line in that, and I think the ones that are successful, meet that criteria. It's tough to criticize these guys on the stuff. They're doing the best that they can, I think, for the most part. There's guys in there that, I think, I would like to not see in the business, but that's just, my personal take on it. But it's, listen, the UFC has been around for like 15, 16 years, 17 years now. They've had plenty of mistakes. In fact, all the way up to the Fertittas, they did mostly everything wrong. You know what I mean? And now they turn around, and so the learning curve for them has been a long time and a huge investment. I mean, what people don't realize is the UFC, the Fertittas and those guys were dedicated. They were over $50 million in debt before they started turning things around. You know, not many people are going to drop $50 million to see if this is going to work. So did they have a learning curve? Absolutely. And that's why they're the 800-pound gorilla that they are today. And it's really kind of unfair to compare their organization and their stuff to other people.
A couple more questions and we'll let you go. It was reported that you had a medical condition before your last fight with Tito. I wanted to ask how you're doing with that. How's that going? You look like you're in still phenomenal shape. I think I can speak to that. I ran a couple miles earlier this week, so I myself know about being in top physical form. But what are you doing? Are you still training? Any maybe thoughts of returning to the ring or the cage?
Well, that's the answer to my health question. Yeah, I had a stroke, actually 2 strokes back to back, due to a medication that I was taking for my knees that they later banned, and so it was kind of I dodged a bullet on that one because it really was not debilitating at all. In fact, I had the strokes. I went to the hospital. They didn't see anything wrong with me. I went to a neurosurgeon. He took some tests. He said, come back tomorrow. I went and trained that next day. They came back that following day and he said, you had 2 strokes. I was like, oh. So it wasn't really horribly debilitating, but it took me a while to get back, where I comfortable. After about 3-4 months, they released me, I think, to go back to the ring. But I just figured it was a time for me to leave. I was 37 years old, and I'd done just about everything I was going to do, and so I had a choice of, I had children on the way. My wife was pregnant with our second child, and I was like, I got to do some other stuff. But I train every day. I mean, listen, I consider myself a martial artist first and an athlete second, so I will probably train to the day I die. I train, 5 to 6 days a week, doing something, and I'll continue that till as long as I can. But every now and then, to answer the third part of the question was, do I have a desire to get back in the ring? Every now and then I do, but I'm on the backside of 42, and so, realistically for me to get in there, I have no desire to be a sideshow to something, you know what I mean? I have desire. I would go back if I thought I could make a run at the title or something like that, and I just think at 42 I really couldn't make a serious run at it the way that I could fit that in with everything I want to be, a father, a businessman. Can't do it all. So, I have to temper my certain desires, my desire to climb back the ring and my desire to be a successful human being. I think my desire to be a successful human being probably is going to be I leave fighting out of it right now.